Before this video starts, I just want to give a massive shout out to all my channel members. If you want to receive a shout out, then become a channel member today and you'll be shown on screen like all these other channel members here. Anyways, enjoy the video. In version 13.4, a new collab was added and brought with it a whole host of new units. This collaboration is with the 2023 anime adaptation of Rurouni Kenshin. This collab adds 4 new Uber Rares, and this video serves as my review for each of these Uber Rares added. All footage featured in this video are the Ubers at level 30 and will be reviewed with said stats in mind. However, stats for higher levels will be shown as well. Also, this isn't some sort of ranking video before you ask, but a simple video compiling my thoughts on all of these Ubers. Before I start with the review, I just want to ask that if you thought this review was helpful in the learning about these units, then be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what you see here, and comment down below on what other collab sets I should review. Anyways, let's review the first of these Ubers. The first of these Ubers is Himura Kenshin, the protagonist of the series. This unit has massive damage against Aku enemies and the rare targeting of traitless enemies, dealing 3 times damage against these enemy types. They stand at a range of 435, which is good enough for what they do, and they are surge immune. Their surge immunity allows them to be an excellent unit for use against Aku enemies that like to spam the death surge, such as Condemned Pang and Fallen Bear. This also allows them to be a great counter against Cappy Jr. and Cappy Kawano, as he is able to outrange both of these enemies. His damage against their targets is very good, as even at level 30, he deals over 100,000 damage against these 2 traits. Their range of 435 allows him to stand far away enough from most threats. As a general attacker, he has average damage but pretty good DPS, and surge immunity allows him to be used in stages where you might not have access to other surge immune units. His rare traitless targeting gives him a great boost in viability, especially if you were to unlock him in the early to mid game, as traitless counters are hard to come by. The only thing that this unit does have that's kind of a negative is a somewhat long force swing of 1 second. This can make him miss his attack sometimes against some enemies that might be getting juggled. Kenshin is a simple backliner unit who deals good generalist damage with access to targeting traits that could be hard to come by, especially his traitless targeting. They also work as a surge immune attacker for those who might not have great surge immune units. Overall, a very solid unit who does his job very well. Just try not to get him cursed. Next up is Sagara Sanosuke, former fighting merchant turned battle partner with Kenshin. This unit is an anti-zombie tanker, being resistant against them with Z-Killer and having an Omni Strike of negative 150 to 440, giving them a piercing range of 50 from his 390 standing range. They also have a 20% chance to deal a Savage Blow, dealing 3 times their normal damage. Sagara's health is very much in the higher end of Uber Rares, and even when compared to other tanker units, he's on the tankier side. So much so that he has the 3rd highest effective health against zombies in the game, only behind Caddy Behemoth in their Ultra Form after talents, and Doom Engine Pandora. This allows him to tank a ton of hits against zombie enemies. This also allows him to be one of the best backliner units to use in levels that have a Johnny Leon, as their Omni Strike allows them to snipe enemies that sit just behind them. Another good thing about their Omni Strike is that most zombie enemies are melee enemies. They can easily hit any zombie enemy that he runs into, as long as they aren't burrowed and behind your lines. He is also freeze immune, allowing him to be an option when facing enemies with said ability. For zombies that can freeze, there really isn't much, as Zeal and Zeonor are the only zombies that can freeze. However, his downsides don't make him a great option for ZNL. Speaking of his downsides, his biggest one is his very long force swing of almost 2.5 seconds. This makes him very prone to missing his attacks, even with the piercing range. He also has somewhat of a long backswing that is also of similar length, meaning he can sometimes get stuck on a burrowed zombie. His DPS is fair, having 3.5k DPS or 4.1k DPS factoring in the Savage Blow, though his damage output is rather low without it. If he doesn't land a 20% Savage Blow, he only deals 34,000 damage. This makes him struggle quite a bit in actually securing kills, and with the lack of Soul Strike, he can't kill any zombies that are in their corpse state. Sagara is still quite a decent Uber, however, I can say right now that out of the 4 Ubers, I believe he is the weakest of the bunch. Doesn't mean he's a bad Uber, but it just means that I think the other 3 are better. Speaking of, let's move on to our next Uber. Shinomori Aoshi, the leader of the only Wabanshu, is our next unit added. He is an anti-floating and angel unit who is strong against them and has a 50% chance to freeze for 5 seconds or 6 seconds with treasures. They are also slow immune. They have an LD that stretches from 250 to 650 range, giving them 150 inner range from their 400 standing range. This unit is a pretty average LD unit that deals okay generalist damage and deals solid LD damage against his traits. The strong ability allows him to be pretty tanky against floating and angel enemies, allowing them to be useful units against even LD enemies of these traits. His freeze is also pretty solid. While it only has a 50% chance to activate, his uptime is 85% with treasures, allowing him to gear up for his next attack by the time the enemies are no longer frozen. In terms of his attack animation, he has a force swing of 2 seconds. While this might be a little bit long on a regular unit, LD units tend to not worry about force swing length unless they're being aggressively pushed. Their slow immunity is an okay immunity, but could be super useful on 2 advent enemies, these being Queen Bee and Cleonelle. However, in the case of Cleonelle, you would need to nudge him a little bit forward to escape her LD. Their slow immunity is also helpful for Chibanelle, Angabaru, and Tarsiriel. Shinomori pairs extremely well with Sanzo Cat, since his minimum LD is 250, which is the same as Sanzo's standing range. Angel and floating enemies that sit outside of Sanzo's range can be frozen by Shinomori, and enemies that escape his attacks can still be slowed by Sanzo. This unit, like every unit, is not without flaws. The main thing about this unit is that their attack step outside of their targets is okay-ish. Nothing too outstanding, but it works well enough. Funny enough, he shares a ton of similarities with another collab Uber, being Madoka Kaname, but that's a discussion for another video. Like all other LD units, they are prone to getting pushed, meaning they can't hit their targets sometimes, especially against extremely aggressive enemies like Borothim and the Bunbun variants. This unit is a solid LD unit that is very good against their targets, especially thanks to his solid crowd controlling abilities. For our last Uber added, we have Saito Hajime, a special agent for the Department of Internal Affairs. They deal massive damage against red and Aku enemies, while always being able to pierce Aku shields. Hajime is a rusher unit, having a speed stat of 55 with very little force swing, allowing him to attack as soon as an enemy appears in his standing range. He also has an Omni Strike of negative 100 to 400 range, allowing him to snipe a ton of enemies that are more in the backline. While it's true that he's very powerful against red enemies, his Aku targeting is what truly makes him a powerhouse, as every single one of his 66k damage hits at level 30 ignores the Aku shield, which is the one thing that gives a ton of Aku enemies a ton of their health. To give a few examples of how many hits it takes him to take down some Aku enemies at level 30, he could take down a 200% Fallen Bear in 3 hits, 200% Le Behemoth in 12 hits, and biggest of them all, could take down a Midnight D in only 5 hits, making him one of the best counters of Midnight D, as he effectively cuts 840,000 health of the Midnight D due to not having their shield. As he is a rusher unit, he has what is called Rebound, so whenever he triggers one of his 6 natural knockbacks, he could start attacking right away instead of having to wait the 4.27 second backswing. As with most rusher units, his ability to stay on the field isn't great, but as long as he makes a big splash on the battlefield, then his work has been well done. This unit is also extremely similar to another collab rusher unit, this being Blanca from Street Fighter. Both have the exact same speed stat and deal massive damage to their targets. While Hajime has lower raw stats compared to Blanca, he trades this out for an additional trait to target, higher standing range, and larger Omni Strike area. Blanca is already regarded as one of the best collab units in the game, and I believe that Hajime is also among one of the best collab units in this game as well. From the 4 Ubers we got, I could say all 4 of them are very solid units. Even the weaker Ubers are still very solid, and if this collab ever comes to EN, I would say that getting at least one of these Ubers is worth it, but I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these 4 Ubers? Let me know in the comments, and or even just tell me what set of collab Ubers I should review next, and while you're down there, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as this lets me know that this is the sort of content you guys want. Also, shout out to the following channel members: Potato King, Something Something YouTube, and Athani for being silver members or higher. Become a channel member today, as it's a way to support me in a way that helps keep the lights on, and channel members also get an exclusive role in my Discord server, for which you can find a link to in the description down below. Anyways, I hope you have a wonderful day.